breaking down the deals, data, and disruption shaping global markets. You're listening to The Daily Ledger with Dennis Sert.
Hey folks, my name is Dennis Sert. Today is Monday, November 24th. You're listening to the Daily Ledger Show. Glad to be here with you. To start out, I just want to say I connected a few more destinations to this stream. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. So this is going to be, I suppose, one of the more hopefully larger ones, but at least more multi-platform ones. So that should be exciting. I got a new webcam. I like this one more. So I started out with a sort of like a 1080p HD, which is I suppose a little bit standard. And I ended up upgrading because this one has higher, or the one I had just right before this, also 4K, had higher resolution, but the angle was really narrow. And I don't like narrow angles. I like a lot of space, kind of like this. So yeah, I got this new one and returned the old one, and I'm very happy with this one. So yeah, both 4K and a high angle. But yeah, let's just dive into some of the stories for today without further ado. So let me get this on the screen. So I just wanted to start out first by saying that I want to allow myself to have a small victory lap here, just a little one, Um, so basically, on November 20th, I said that, well, after reviewing the FOMC notes, or the Fed chair notes, um, I basically predicted that the Fed is going to cut rates. Now, it ain't over till it's over, but I noticed that the poly market graph for Fed decision in December. And then yeah, on the 20th, no change was actually 76%. So my opinion on that was actually contrarian to the mainstream. And then what happened was, I I guess everyone started viewing the Daily Ledger, and suddenly today, a few days later, 25 basis points decrease became more likely at 75%. So yeah, so that's just a little fact, but yeah. Okay, let's get into the news. So Trump and Mamdani strike optimistic tone, sidestepping past critiques of the New York Times. So looks like President Trump and I guess Mayor-elect in New York, Mamdani, had a meeting in the Oval Office on Friday. Looks like it went well from what I hear. Kind of like basically the title of this article says, it was sort of like an optimistic tone. So that's always good. Apparently it was Mamdani who was the first one to reach out. So that's kind of interesting. And we'll have to see where this goes, but this was definitely kind of a step in the right direction. So yeah, that's why not. So basically it's on the front page of every big news site right now. Basically Europe is, and the EU, and specifically the EU Commission, is basically going over the 28-point peace plan between, Ukraine and the US with Russia. Yeah, so it seems like there's some steps in the right direction on that front, from like Rubio and whatnot. I was reading some of what the president of the European Commission was saying. So she kind of released a statement. So her name's Ursula von der Leyen. And yeah, so she released a statement yesterday, basically talking about this. And I'm actually going to read some of it. So she said, um, an efficient and coordinated European engagement as well as strong. Yes, I'm not going to read this whole thing. The thing that kind of stood out to me though was this. So she said, these are core European principles moving forward. Ukraine's sovereignty must be respected. Only Ukraine, as a sovereign country, can make decisions regarding their armed forces. A choice of their destinies in their own hands. I'm not really sure what she's getting at here. So in this sentence here, she goes, "While work remains to be done, there's a solid basis for moving forward." So so she's kind of saying like, "Oh yeah, what we're gonna we kind of like the foundations of what's happening here, right?" So that's what the sentence is saying. Um, and she's basically implying that she's going to make some small tweaks. And then later on in her statement, she says Ukraine's territory sovereignty must be respected. But that's sort of the crux of the deal. Like they're gonna like the deal is that they're gonna give Donbass to Russia. Um, Yeah, so do you like it, von der Leyen, or do you not? Like I don't really understand based on what you've been saying here. While work remains to be done, there is a solid basis for moving forward. Okay, great. And then Ukraine's territory and sovereignty must be respected. Oh, okay. So you're against the 28 peace plan? Like make up your mind. So yeah, so there's that in this article by Bloomberg. So the title is Europe scrambles for time after US sets Ukraine an ultimatum. So, so the Europeans met up um, recently to sort of discuss this, and basically, it seems like what's what some people are saying is that so you know how President Trump imposes Thanksgiving deadline to sort of come to the table and hammer this agreement out, basically finalize it with a little bit of leeway if there's some good progress going on. Basically, the EU Commission wants to rewrite a lot of the document, but present it as constructive updates. So they're sort of like it seems like based on this Bloomberg article, it seems like the EU is kind of saying like, oh, let's we like it, right? And that's sort of what Vaughn said here. There's a solid basis for moving forward. Oh yeah, we like this agreement, but we just have to do a few little tweaks, and then the little tweaks are like, okay, well, no territory gets to be ceded, and then all this other stuff like we agree but we disagree. It's like okay, great. Um, yeah. So that's sort of what's going on that front. We'll have to stay posted on that. On because this is really a finance show, and don't bring politics in this way, but I'm making an exception for this story. The story we just read here. Um, One, because it's sort of like what everybody's talking about right now, and it sort of kind of overlaps into finance, global economy. So I really did want to look at it from an economic perspective. But I think it's fair to read von der Leyen's sort of statement on this as well and analyze because we like to be analytical on the show. But yeah, so let's move on. Um, so this story is about Marriott and Sonder, kind of just like um, having a massive fallout, right? So let's read. Inside Marriott's disastrous bet on short-term rental company Sonder. Investment added rooms for hotel chain, but apartment rental firm collapsed under high cost leases. Everything kind of went straight downhill. Yeah, so basically what had happened was I think in like 2020 or 2021, Marriott got into bed with Sonder, so they made a deal basically where on Marriott.com you can book Sonder properties. So Sonder is like a small like Airbnb style um kind of like a pseudo hotel chain. I think they at first were founded in Montreal and then they kind of reincorporated San Francisco. Um and yeah, so But what had happened was a few weeks ago, I think for the past few months, it seems like in the past few years, frankly, Sonder has been not doing too well, um, financially speaking. And what happened was a few weeks ago, Marriott just fully pulled the plug on the deal, right? So Marriott said it pulled the plug on the partnership because Sonder defaulted on the terms and had reached out to affected customers to assist with refunds and alternative accommodations. Sonder blamed its collapse on severe financial constraints. So this is kind of crazy, especially for me personally, because I was actually staying in a Sonder property that day. So what had happened was I was in Montreal. I had and I actually liked Sonder quite a bit. It's kind of like it's well before it kind of went belly up. It was kind of like somewhat inexpensive and also like kind of high quality. So I liked it quite a bit. But yeah, so I was in Montreal a few weeks ago, and I think I was about to check in. So I came early because you can only check in at like 4 p.m. So I came at like 1 in the basement, talked with the receptionist and everything, and then I went and got lunch. And then I'm sitting there on my computer while having lunch, at this random cafe in Le Vieux Port. And you know what happens? I get this email from Marriott saying your reservation has been canceled. It's like, what the fuck? What do you mean? Like I thought it was a scam at first. And then I started calling around. I called Marriott, I called Sonder, and then I realized they actually they changed their voicemail message. So it basically just said like, oh, there's been a massive fallout. And so yeah, so basically I had to find new accommodation, which I was able to do fairly quickly, luckily. And then I got a refund later on for that, and a little bit on top of that just for the trouble. But yeah, I mean, it was so unprofessional. Like I can't believe Marriott was. I mean, because you'd think like, oh yeah, Marriott's a super well known hotel chain, right? And it's hard to imagine that they would just be like, oh, you don't have it anymore. But because at the very least, they should like honor all the reservations that were already made, rather than just like pull the plug completely and be like, okay, we're done, bye. Like that was kind of ridiculous. Um, but yeah, anyways, so that is just super dumb. But yeah, so I guess to sort of wrap up on the story, the chaotic unraveling shocked guests, but Marriott knew Sonder was getting desperate for cash. Sonder had limped for years of from one burst of funding to the next, never landing on a business model that could turn a consistent profit. Yeah, so that's kind of unfortunate. Okay, Boycott grows as Epstein documents and index fears collide. So apparently, there's this huge JP Morgan boycott going on, and it's actually super deep. So there's some big like moguls in this space in sort of the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space. One guy's name is Max Kaiser. Another guy's name is Michael Saylor. He's the CEO of Strategy, which used to be called MicroStrategy, and they're like a Bitcoin treasury company, which basically which is a company that holds a large amount of Bitcoin as its primary treasury reserve asset. But yeah, so there's a lot going on in this space, which is kind of interesting. So if you look up crash JP Morgan, you'll see Max Kaiser, one of the guys I mentioned, his sort of take on this, and he has a huge following, around 400K here. And then so these are all pretty fresh, 20 hours ago, 18 hours ago. Someone says like, oh, we need to close your accounts with them, with JP Morgan. Here's this other guy, I don't know him, he's saying breaking drama surrounding JP Morgan and MicroStrategy, now called Strategy. There are unconfirmed rumors that JP Morgan allegedly holds a huge short position on MicroStrategy, um, so large that a 50% pump above Friday's closing price could cause existential problems for the bank. So it seems like, just like reading a few of these X posts, it seems like a lot of these crypto moguls are pissed off at JP Morgan Chase for essentially shorting MicroStrategy, basically betting against Bitcoin, and they don't like that. And it's true that Bitcoin is kind of down right now, and a lot of it's at 85,740, which is quite low. Um, and what's kind of interesting here is that I think a lot of these cryptocurrency holders are losing money, like hand over fist. It's pretty bad. And if JP Morgan actually shorted MicroStrategy, aka proxy for Bitcoin, kind of, yeah, that's they're going to receive the ire of these cryptocurrency holders, right? So that's what this article here is also kind of getting into. Um, Okay, speculation intensified when long-time Bitcoin advocate Max Kaiser referenced unconfirmed claims that JP Morgan holds a short position on MicroStrategy. He suggested this alleged position could become MicroStrategy or to trade 50. Okay, yeah, so exactly what we had read. And yeah, so a lot of people are again unhappy towards JP Morgan. Also for other reasons I'm not going to get into, like the Epstein scandal, which somewhat insinuates involvement allegedly by JP Morgan. But yeah, so that's sort of what this gets into as well. So there's some drama around that. Um, we'll see what happens. Okay, let's get into the final story for today. And this one's kind of this one's kind of funny. So Cash Patel has this girlfriend, and she's like a content creator, and she, I guess, is like a singer, right? Um, and obviously, Cash Patel is the director of the FBI, and there's a scandal that Cash Patel is using um taxpayer money to go and see her. And so, being the FBI director, he's in DC, and apparently she's in like Tennessee. So obviously that's a long ways to go for a booty call. Yeah, and that's something I posted about earlier this weekend. But yeah, I mean that's kind of tough. I mean, look, my position on this is very simple, right? We support the booty calls, but we support it with class. Okay, we don't we don't do booty calls on government money. We don't do booty calls on venture capital, cash, or anything else. Okay, and I'll even go as far to say as far and as to say this: you're in such a prominent position that you're the FBI director, or you're like a venture capital backed CEO, right? Like you're high up there. You really shouldn't be doing long distance relationships, right? Because when I was backed by Y Combinator in San Francisco, I had this sort of long distance situationship thing going on. It was kind of a serious situationship. It was kind of weird. But yeah, so while I was in San Francisco, that's what was going on. You know what? I didn't step a foot outside of SF. Yeah. So you know what? My position on this, Cash, is put the dick down and just work. Okay. So yeah. All right. So enough ranting about that. Let's dive into Byte AI, which is actually the sponsor show. Market Analysis is an iOS app. It's basically like a co-pilot. It's also a web app. So it's a co-pilot that helps you make stock trades, right? So it basically um, analyzes trends like technical indicators. So a few of them are the RSI curve, relative strength index, as well as the MACD curve and the signal curve, as well as Bollinger Bands, just to name a few. We also have news sentiment that goes into basically the very succinct stamps of approval or disapproval or neutrality, right? So as you can see here, there's Microsoft underbought, which we'll get into in a second, and then everything else is neutral today. Some other days it's overbought, and then it shows up as red. So typically you'd want to buy when it's underbought, overbought. So buy when it's green, and then sell when it's red. But make sure you know that Byte AI is not a financial advisor. Okay, it's just a data and number crunching tool that's AI first that you can use to sort of be better informed, which is sort of the theme of the show. But yeah, it is not a financial advisor, and past success does not guarantee future results. Okay. So that being said, let's dive into Microsoft. I like to read basically the non-neutral ones on the show here, and then you can go ahead and read as much as you'd like with the stocks that you want at any time of the day. It updates about every half hour to an hour. Every stock in our servers. So let's read. Microsoft underbought. Microsoft is presenting a compelling near-term rebound setup despite recent softness. The RSI is about 37.2, at about 37.2, indicates strong underbought conditions, and the price sits near the lower Bollinger Band with an especially narrow bandwidth, implying prior compression and a higher likelihood of mean reversion towards the mid Bollinger Band. Okay. News analysis across the provided Microsoft coverage, sentiment is largely neutral with a modest tilt towards somewhat bullish and a couple of notices. The strongest near-term positive signal stems from ServiceNow deepening Microsoft integrations, which reinforces Microsoft's enterprise/cloud growth narrative. Okay, technical indicators. The stock price is almost the same as the lower Bollinger Band. Okay, that sort of indicates underbought territory. The RSI at 37, also underbought because, so it says strongly underbought here because it's below 50. Okay, and then it talks about the MACD. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. At this and then let's make a trade on that. Of course, this is just me. I'm not advising you to do this, and nor is Byte AI. This is just a tool, a data analysis tool. Okay. So I'm gonna see how much. Oh wow, there's 66 cents available. I probably need to sell something off the show in order to. Yeah. Okay. Well, I would have made this trade, but there's not enough cash right now. I don't want to mess with that alive. Okay. Cool. I think that should be good. Make sure to download Byte AI again. If you basically access it through the web app through app.byteai.me, which is in the top right corner, so byteai.me. And you can use the code podcast20 to get a 20% discount. Basically off your first month. So that's podcast 20s at Stripe checkout from the web app.byteai.me. And you can do this not just live with me here on the show, but every day. Okay, folks, that's going to be the end of it here. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.